So we're out of the studio today. We're in one of our apartments on the outskirts of London. And as the whole of the UK comes out of lockdown, what we're looking at with a couple of apartments is, should we be letting these on an AST basis, on a regular tenancy basis, as we have done for several years, or is it worth venturing into the wonderful world of serviced accommodation and serviced apartments? And to help me evaluate some of these units and to decide whether serviced accommodation is the right way to go, I'm joined by my good friend Dave Goodfellow, who is a serviced accommodation expert. Thanks for coming down all the way from Chester.
No problem.
To have a look.
It's been a pleasure.
So, tell the viewers a little bit about what you do in serviced accommodation and why I've come to you as a go-to expert on this. In this area.
So
no pressure.
No pressure at all, right? So all on me now. So we met on Clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
So met on Clubhouse. So my main strategy within the property market is serviced accommodation, and we mix those up. So we've got owned property, rent to serviced accommodation, and we also manage other people's properties for them too. We've got a portfolio across the country, and we're looking into different areas across the UK now to kind of expand our business. Mainly in the serviced accommodation management arena, but we're also looking to get into the apart hotel arena as well. So we've bought up an old guest house, done some creative strategies on that, and we're moving forward in building that into a nice little apart.
And that's quite an interesting project. So this guest house that you bought, this is in North Wales, isn't it?
North
You're
Wales,
making it into 12 apartment rooms, is it?
So bought in North Wales in a little seaside town called Llandudno. That was my Welsh coming out there, you like that. So we bought that back end of last year. The initial thought of it was to change it back from a C1 into C3 and sell it as
so just for the viewers at home, C1 is basically hotel, isn't it? Hotel guest house planning status.
Yes, yeah. C3 is obviously residential. We initially planned to kind of move that into a C3 dwellings. It was going to be 9 apartments, but then we got into the world of C1 and how easy it was to kind of not have to go through the planning applications and all that sort of stuff. And so we decided now to turn it into an apart hotel and run it as what we do. Because we do serviced accommodation, why wouldn't we run it as that?
So once you've got we'll talk about the operations a bit later, because the operations is far more intense than managing normal ASTs. When you've got people coming for a weekend, it's completely different if they're staying for 6 months or a year.
Absolutely.
So I brought you down to we've looked at 2 or 3 apartments, 3 apartments actually, with a view to converting them into serviced accommodation. But before you came down, you did a little bit of viability assessing. Yeah. And that's very, very important because it doesn't work everywhere, does it?
It doesn't, no. So serviced accommodation is very, very much about location. So I have 6 building blocks that I work to make sure that serviced accommodation is worth looking at first, and then we'll go into some data-led decision making and use some tools online to kind of make sure that the area is worth doing it there. So do you want me to run through my 6?
Yeah, go for it.
Six blocks. So number 1, we're looking for a weekend break destination. So somewhere where you could take a loved one or your family for the weekend. 2, a tourist attraction, so like a main tourist attraction where somebody's going to go and visit. 3rd one is a business and construction, so a lot of construction going on in the area, or a business environment that brings people to the area. So they're the 3 main elements. Then I have 3 supporting elements, which are a university, a hospital, and a main means of transport. So like a train station or a bus station that people can get in and out of the city easily.
So obviously in these sort of locations, you've got all of those.
Absolutely, yeah. So once you've done that, though, that's not a given that serviced accommodation will work. And the reason for that is some places can be oversaturated. Some places can have all those elements and just not work. So you need to go in and do some what we call data-led decision making, which we get from a piece of software called AirDNA. And we go deep into that. AirDNA.
Okay.
Yeah, we go deep on that. Granular level detail.
So what does that give you? Is that just collect a load of booking information?
It gives you all sorts. So it'll give you, average revenue per month, average nightly rates, occupancy rates, seasonality reports, a whole plethora of things that we could probably do a full hour YouTube session on.
So you look at the data and the previous bookings in a given location for a particular property type. to assess whether there's demand. And you told me something really fascinating about the London area in terms of what's happened since lockdown. So pre-lockdown, how are you telling me the number of short let apartments available?
So that's a great question. So pre-lockdown in London, there was around 88,000 serviced accommodation rentals. Now, rentals are, apartments, studios, all that sort of stuff. Now, coming out of the back of the pandemic, there's around 38,000 rentals. Massive reduction.
Wow.
Now, what we're expecting to see is, that supply has basically been massively depleted, and hope the actual demand for the market's coming back now, right? So we're expecting to see an uplift in prices because supply's gone, demand comes back, simple economics.
Yes. So it's worth doing, but then it's the property type, isn't it? And then it's because this is a studio apartment. These are studio apartments that we're looking at here. You looked at the specific demand, not just for the location, but for property type as well.
Yeah. So it's really important when you're doing your analysis that you don't just look at the location itself. You've also got to look at the criteria of the property. So how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, has it got parking? There's lots of different things that make up whether the property will work or not.
Yes.
And lots of different things that will draw them in. We talked about the 6 building blocks before. So you've got your criteria of your property, you've got the location, but you've also got what's drawing people into that area. So, for example, we always market our properties on a location-based stay or an experience stay. So people aren't coming to your area to stay in your property per se.
Yeah.
They're more likely to come to the area to kind of go and visit an attraction or go and visit a loved one or work in the area. That's a good point. Right?
No one really gives it has to be clean, obviously, and all that, but they haven't come to stay here 24/7.
Exactly that. So don't get too hung up on kind of the property's got to be nice, it's got to be functional, it's got to be clean and tidy.
Yes.
But how it actually looks itself, you don't need to go too over the top. Serviced accommodation, if people are going to go and visit it, in my opinion, if they're going to go for ultra luxury, they're going to a hotel because they'll have the amenities and the services with it.
No, I get that, but how it looks, I guess, is very important for the photographs because everyone sees the visuals and it needs to be right for people to click in order to book in the first place.
It's a great point. You've got to make sure that you've got professional photos, you've got little things that make it stand out from the crowd.
Fluffy cushions.
Yeah, like fluffy cushions could be one of them. Or, a nice feature wall. It doesn't have to be over the top and too expensive to actually kit these places out. But it's the little things that make the big differences. A little splash of green everywhere, every now and again. A nice feature wall. Grey is always a good colour. Just the little things that make the big difference. The difference.
We'll get back to the video in just a moment, but what I wanted to really tell you about was what is the most exciting opportunity in property right now, and that is repurposing defunct commercial buildings to residential use. Now, most people don't really know where to start, what to look for, and how to exploit these opportunities, and that's why I've prepared 90 minutes of free training for you to get you started on this wonderful journey. You can register for this free training at property-workshop.com. Join me on that free training, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of the video. So this place, this little studio, so a tenant would have just moved out of here. It hasn't been cleaned or anything like that. What do we need to do to it to make it? Can we just bang it out on serviced accommodation as it is?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
So there's a few things you're going to have to think about for serviced accommodation to get this into the place where it wants to be. Now, how I kind of explain this to people is when you serviced accommodation, when somebody walks into your apartment or your studio or your house, it's all about that first impression. So it's got to smell right, it's got to look right, it's got to be clean, it's got to have those little touches that we talked about before around your little, splash of green, bit of colour, feature wall, so it's a wow factor when they walk in. So this place, for example, is going to need a lick of paint. It's going to have that maybe that grey scale with a nice feature wall. We're going to put, instead of having a sofa bed in here, we're going to put a twin a zip and link bed.
Yeah.
So you can either have
what is this zip and link bed? Because we haven't used those before.
So zip and link bed is you can either have it as a bed that's zipped together, or you can unlink it.
Oh, I see. This is for couples who have relationship issues, is it?
Not quite. It's
They
more
should
for-
be holidaying separately, shouldn't they?
Could be. We've not marketed it as that yet, but that's a good point. But no, generally it's for contractors that are going to come and stay in the studio. There's maybe 2 of them that are coming to work in a particular location. You can split the bed up, and you've got the option there for them to share a room and save a few quid that way.
That's an interesting point. It goes on to occupancy. I mean, I'm just dipping my toes in the serviced accommodation arena. And one of the reasons I wanted to do studios was that my perception of larger flats is that can be descended upon by party houses and all of this. Where in a studio flat, that's highly unlikely. You've got to be really close friends in these COVID days to have a party in a studio flat. Am I being worried? I mean, have I just read too many horror stories in the newspapers, or is it a real concern with larger properties getting them abused?
So look, like any business, you have your risks, and it's how you go about mitigating those risks. So we do a number of different things to mitigate those risks. Take IDs, take deposits, put little gadgets in the property so you can see if the heat rises or the noise rises. We do a number of different things to stop that. Now, it doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to get a few that slip the net, but it is the minority. It's not, and it's how you deal with it when it happens with the kit that you've got. So we also have cameras on properties, not inside, outside. Just putting that in there. we don't have anything.
That would be some fascinating content for our YouTube viewers. But carry on, yeah.
Maybe we'll do that. I'm joking. We're not going to do that in here, right? So yeah, we have a lot of things that we put in place to help stop that. But you're right. In a studio, the likelihood of having a huge party in here is slim, right? Yeah. What they're gonna do? They're not gonna bring 10 people in here after a night out. Well, they might do, but. It's not something that really concerns me, not with the studios. So,
I mean, in our business, we're very set up to run AST tenancies, 6 months, 12 months and all of that. But we're not set up to run a serviced accommodation type of business. What are the main differences that people need to think about when transitioning from doing ASTs to serviced accommodation? So, from an operations perspective.
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a number of different things you need to be thinking about in terms of the operation. I call this the SA iceberg. So the iceberg is everybody in serviced accommodation, all they ever see is the revenue that everybody's getting at the top, or the cash flow. And there's this whole plethora of different things that you need to understand underneath. So guest services, linen, cleaning companies. There's just systems to check in and out your guests. I'm probably missing 100 of these things, but there's a whole raft of stuff underneath. Now, an AST you can run, it's pretty much hands off, right? I think we all kind of understand that the buy-to-let strategy is kind of set and forget. You pass it over to an agent, and it kind of they just get on with it. With serviced accommodation, it's a bit more involvement, especially at the outset, and unless you get an SA management company in to manage it for you, it can be quite hands-on as a strategy.
I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make, because they just have one or two. They don't have the scales to have build the operational infrastructure, and then they end up running around at 11 o'clock at night showing some person how to use a kettle because they've just checked in or something.
Exactly that. So what we tend to do with our properties is we'll take a full inventory. We do a walk around. We have VAs in the Philippines who do our guest services. We have what's called a property information board. So essentially they can jump into that property and tell the guest exactly what needs to be done from an information board that we give them. And we take it down to serial numbers on a microwave or an oven, and we'll get YouTube videos to then pass to the guests. So it's very hands-off.
It sounds to me that there's a massive extra set layer of processes and procedures and policies even, and ways of dealing with customers, which is completely different to running a normal AST business. And also even the contractors. I mean, if I've got someone moving into a AST flat, like the one next door, someone's moving in on Saturday, I understand, and the cleaning was done yesterday. So there's often a little bit more time to get things done. Whereas with serviced accommodation, they may be out in the morning and you've got someone else in the night.
Yeah,
And
so
if the property isn't cleaned, that is quite a time critical thing to get done.
Yeah, so we have a check-out process and a check-in process, which normally sits between 10 and 3 o'clock. Everything's got to be done within that short time frame. So yeah, it's quite a big ask, especially when you get to a few more properties.
Well, I'm only looking at doing 2 or 3 serviced accommodation units. Is it worth the hassle for me to set up that extra layer of infrastructure to deal with it?
Well, it depends. So if you're looking to grow a serviced accommodation business, if you're looking to do 10, 12, 50, whatever it is, properties, then it might be worth investing your time in getting some education on building the systems around your business. But if you want a hands-off experience, you're best off going to a serviced accommodation management company who's going to charge you between 15% to 20% plus VAT. And they'll have it all set out in the background already. Now, if your system's going to cost you more than that 15-20%, you might as well have somebody else manage it for you who's got the experience and who's got the data and the background behind them to put guests in it.
No, I get you. But Dave, where do I go to find one of those? That's why I brought Dave down, because we're not going to run them. Dave's going to sort this out. So one of the things that you guys are doing is kind of preparing a little bit of an audit and coming up with a list.
Yep.
And what will that be on that list? Will it just be a to-do list of stuff to do?
Yeah, so there'll be this is what we've done today. Dave, my operations manager, has come down with me to the studios. We've had a good look round. What we're doing with that list is we're checking off what the apartments need, and this is down to knives and forks in the drawers.
Yeah.
So what is this studio going to need to operate as a serviced accommodation unit from a functionality point of view, from a decor point of view, from a pots and pans.
Sorry, how long did I put in the car? Do we remember?
Zero idea.
I said it was an hour.
So let's get down there, have we?
Yeah, let's get down there. Well, bit of drama there. I mean, the parking always gets you when you're in town. Anyway, we're back in the office. Where were we? We're talking about inventories, knives, forks. You've got to have a lot of more stuff, I guess, than in AST rentals. And what else do I need? Do I need a fancy telly? Are they going to watch Netflix and all of that?
Yeah, so look, the inventory that we've just been through, you're going to need to make it a home from home. So when somebody walks into your apartment, they need to have everything there to live in it.
Yeah.
So that's from, your TVs. A smart TV is always good. Don't really need to put Netflix in because, well, you need to have Netflix available but not pay for it. We made that mistake at the beginning, and everybody, of course, that's got Netflix does what? They log into their own account, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
yes.
They just log into their own Netflix account. Don't need to pay for it.
Yes.
But yeah, knives, forks, you might want some amenities in there, shampoos, shower gels. You'll also maybe put some like salt and peppers in the rooms and stuff like that. Just a few little bits just to get them going. As soon as they walk through the door as well, you might want some coffee, teas, and a few sugars, just so when they come into the property, they've got something there to kind of relax and get themselves going.
So once we've done it all, you guys are going to operate these units. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get these people in? How do you attract the punters? I mean, is it just
do we have to do that as well?
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, we will.
I mean, I know they're Booking.com and Airbnb, but is that just it?
That's a great question. So there's not just your online travel agents. What a lot of people make the mistake of when they get into serviced accommodation is just relying very heavily on what we call the OTAs, or the online travel agents. But what we do is we go out and we market directly through all sorts of different channels. We do Facebook advertising. Once we've got people in our properties, we'll take their details, speak to them and rebook them. And that's called what we call direct bookings. Now they can either come from the people that are direct in the property, or they can come through your own website. And what that does for you is it will reduce your costs. So generally, if you get a booking through Airbnb or Booking.com, it's 15% on top of everything else that goes with it. But if you get a direct booking through our website, it's you don't have to pay that.
What percentage are you achieving direct?
About 75% at the moment.
Wow.
That's been through COVID. And a lot of that is because we've had a lot of contractor stays during the week. So we've had the 4 days during the week in most of our properties full, and not much at the weekends. Now we're expecting that to change as the markets open back up and more leisure travel comes back. But generally we'll sit between 45 and 50% direct bookings.
So of course, if people are booking the serviced accommodation rooms and things and apartments through multiple channels, how do you deal with conflicts? If it's on Airbnb and someone's booking on Thursday.
Do you line up these questions before you started, Steve? These are great questions. So that's another good one. So we use what we call a channel manager. So what a channel manager is it looks at and takes all your bookings in one place.
What is that? Is that
it's like a piece of software.
It's software.
Piece of software that kind of links into Airbnb, Booking.com, VRBO, or any online travel agent, but also into your direct booking website. So what happens if you get a booking in Airbnb, it blocks it out in your...
I see. It automatically says it's not available.
Exactly that. So you don't have to sit there and go, oh, right, I better block my calendar out on all the rest of them. I mean, if you've got, lots of properties, that's going to be very difficult every time a booking comes in, right? So you get what's called a channel manager, and that manages all the channels for you.
So, this last year has been very interesting in terms of lockdown. It's been in, out, shake it all about, a little bit of eat out to help out and all this stuff in between. So no one really knows. We're hoping this is it. We're out of lockdown, it's complete freedom. But are you finding that people are leaving their bookings till the last minute? Or are they actually booking way in advance as they used to do in the pre-lockdown world?
That's changed massively over the last year or so. So during the pandemic, people were pretty much leaving it. 7 days was a long period of time. People will normally book in like a couple of days in advance for their stays. And we've still seen that. And we've seen that for a long period of time through the pandemic. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for people to get that confidence back to then start booking in advance. Now, we have seen some bookings coming in for the summer after the 21st. But yeah, that's just the confidence has got to come back. Yeah. So don't worry too much if you haven't got bookings well in advance right now. As we get through the pandemic and it lifts and everything, all the lockdowns lift and get open everywhere, I think confidence will come back and you'll start getting bookings further in advance.
Now, the most important question, of course, is the dosh. I know you've done a little bit of modelling on some of these, some of our flats. Over and above standard, normal AST rental, what sort of uplift are you looking at by doing serviced accommodation, and how much voids would you expect? Because it's not going to be rented every day, surely.
No, that's another great question. So, with a standard AST or a buy-to-let, I can quite confidently say that we can in the right location, we can double your net profit on those properties. In terms of voids, our business normally works in a normal market on between 75 and 80% occupancy. But again, that net profit's the key. So normally double the AST.
That's net profit. That's taken into account of all the extra costs, the cleaning and the linen and knives, forks getting lost and all of
everything,
that.
Yeah, everything.
The whole lot.
Maintenance, everything that goes with it.
Brilliant. Listen, I'm really looking forward to this serviced accommodation journey. We'll be vlogging it on this channel. We'll take you back to the properties once they're all done and ready. Maybe I'll even stay in one for a night and vlog that as well. Who knows? Let me know in the comments below whether you want to see all that. Dave, you've been wonderful. Your contact details we're going to leave in the description below. But what sort of stuff do you do for people?
In terms of I manage other people's properties for them too. So like we said before, we own our own. We have rent to serviced accommodation strategies, and we do SA management. So we're looking at expanding our reach across the UK at the moment. And we also have a training company as well that teaches people how to systemize their businesses in serviced accommodation so they can work smarter, not harder.
So these contact details will be below. And I think one thing I liked about your approach is that before you basically take on a property to manage, you did quite a bit of due diligence on it before you took it on. I guess it's just not worth your while getting involved because
it's not so much.
market.
Well, it's not so much that it's we can take a property on and make money as soon as somebody books that property. But the real key to this is that the client, as in yourself, you need to make money too, right? So if we
it does help. I mean, you've got to pay the bills and all of that.
And that's why we we analyse the properties, because if you're not making money at the same time as we are, then it's not a win-win situation. So we won't take properties on unless we both make money.
Brilliant. So on that money-making thought, that's all for this video. See you guys next time. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon. You'll get notified when we upload the next videos. See you in the next video.